Hi, my name is Pragya Pandey. I am a product marketing manager on the enterprise mobility team in CNE. The specific area that I work on is information protection, focusing mainly on Azure Rights Management. I also have with me today Shobit Sahai from the Office team. Shobit, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Shobit Sahai. I'm a technical product manager in Office 365 team. And like Pragya, I also work on information protection strategy, but for Office 365 team. And this includes things like email filtering, data loss prevention, encryption technologies, and mobile device management for Office 365.
So today we are going to discuss and demonstrate the comprehensive information protection strategy from Microsoft that is enabled by technologies from within EMS, Office 365, and Windows. So let's get started. So in general, what we have noticed is that all organizations have sensitive information that they seek to protect, regardless of the industry they operate in, the size or scale of the business, or the amount of sensitive data that they deal with. In the past, protecting this information was simple. Employees used to work on workstations that were within the network, and this network was a boundary within which information always stayed safe. But today we live in a different world. With trends such as BYOD, employees bring multiple devices to work, and they want to use these devices to get their work done from anywhere at any time in order to be productive. They also want to access corporate resources from these machines. And IT, on the other hand, needs to make sure that employees have access to corporate resources, but the corporate assets are also secure. Employees also use both corporate and personal applications in their day-to-day work. And these applications can be approved, non-approved, or personal applications. And these applications help them in getting productive in their day-to-day business. We've also noticed that data is no longer stored within a perimeter. With trends such as outsourcing, you do need to share information with your vendors and partners, and you need to do that in a secure manner. We also have the concept of virtual orgs, where, for instance, in case of a merger or acquisition, there are teams from different organizations working on a project. And these teams could be HR team, finance, legal, and you need to make sure that all the sensitive information that is shared among this group remains only within this group. So we need to make sure that data is shared, but it is also shared in a secure manner. We have noticed that the traditional data protection policies or solutions can come in the way of user productivity. We certainly do not want to block users from using their devices. We want to give them the freedom to use the device of their choice, but we want to make sure that the productivity experience is retained. We've also seen that cyber attacks continue to be the top IT concern, and this is one area that's keeping IT awake at night. Every day in news, we hear of some big organization getting hacked or threatened to being attacked. So these organizations need an end-to-end defense mechanism that can prevent attacks on various attack surfaces. So we will talk a little more about what Microsoft has to offer to secure companies against these cyber attacks. And last but not the least, the compliance rules are becoming more complex and are changing every day, depending on the laws, the legal requirements, or the regulatory needs of businesses. So we are going to look at all the solutions that we provide from EMS, Office 365, and Windows to give you a more secure solution for protecting your sensitive information. So the question remains, how do you give your users the freedom to work on the device of their choice and allow them to collaborate with their partners and customers, and then at the same time make sure that corporate assets are always protected? So our comprehensive information protection solution addresses these needs by simplifying and protecting access to applications, by preventing accidental leaks that often happen in organizations, and still allowing collaboration and retaining the productivity experiences of the users. We also enable you to stop external threats at various attack surfaces, and we will see that in more details in the following slides. And we also help you to stay compliant with the ever-changing and evolving compliance requirements. So these are some of the stats that reiterate the fact why allowing a secure access to applications is important. You will see that more than 80% of employees admit to using unapproved SaaS applications in their jobs. So I talked about employees using approved, unapproved personal applications in their day-to-day business. I'm sure all of you have used Facebook or your personal Twitter accounts in their day-to-day work. So we need a mechanism that allows users to use these applications, but that at the same time make sure that corporate data is not leaked. We also know that 59% of organizations are projected to start some kind of BYOD initiative this year. This is huge, and we do need to prepare organizations for this change. We also have more than 75% of all network intrusions due to compromised user credentials. This is why identity is the core of protecting your corporate assets. So we will talk more about our identity protection solutions in the following slides. So this is how we help simplifying and protecting access to corporate applications. So we have Azure Active Directory Premium, which is included in Enterprise Mobility Suite, which helps you integrate identities from on-prem to cloud. So you have a central repository of your identities, and you can provide single sign-on using those identities to thousands of SaaS applications, corporate applications, and also on-premise applications. We also have Azure Multi-Factor Authentication that gives you an opportunity to add an additional layer of security for sensitive data. We have Microsoft Intune, which is included in Enterprise Mobility Suite, that helps you achieve device compliance and make sure that only the known and managed devices have access to corporate resources. Let's look a little more in detail about our identity and access management solution. So we have Azure Active Directory Premium, which is our identity and access management solution, which helps you synchronize your identities from on-premise, and these identities can be stored in Active Directory or any other LDAP directory to Azure Active Directory, and you can use the Azure AD Connect tool to synchronize those identities. It is a very simple connection, and it provides organizations a very simple and easy way to get started with their cloud identities. So once these identities are synchronized to cloud, Azure AD is the central repository of all identities, and you can use Azure AD to provide single sign-on to employees to multiple applications in cloud. So this application access capability gets even better with Windows 10. A Windows 10 device can be joined to Azure AD, and it can be opted to be auto-enrolled with Microsoft Intune. Once the device is joined to Azure AD, employees can have access to thousands of applications in cloud from the device. We also provide enhanced conditional access with a Win 10 device. With Windows 10, additional device information can be sent to Azure AD, and such as path status, firewall status, and these settings can be used to determine if the device is healthy or not. And we can ensure that only a healthy device has access to corporate resources. With Microsoft Passport, we give a simpler and a stronger second-factor authentication to log in to your Windows 10 device. You can use facial recognition, iris recognition to log into your Win 10 device. So we talked about protecting application access and how the experience gets even better with Windows 10. Now let me show you a demo of conditional access on an iPad. Let's say I'm a new employee and I bring in my new iPad to work. The first thing that I want to do is get access to my corporate email. So I go to Outlook and I try to add my work account here. So let's say I want to add my Office 365 account, and this is my corporate account. I'm redirected to my organizational login page. I enter the password. And I try to sign in to my work email from this device. So you will see that I get this message that says that your device must be managed by my organization before I can use this application. This is because IT in my organization has a policy in place that allows only managed devices to access corporate application. So if I try to enroll this device by clicking on Enroll, what happens behind the scenes is that all the device information, none of the personal information is set. The device information is sent to Microsoft Intune, and now Microsoft Intune can deploy and enforce policies on these devices. So next time, an account will be created in Azure AD for this device, and the device is known to IT. So this is managed, and next time when I try to access corporate email from this device, I will be able to do that. Now let's go to a device that is already enrolled with Microsoft Intune and show how multi-factor authentication experience looks. So this is a device that is already enrolled by Microsoft Intune. And now I go to My Apps portal. Here you will see that I have all the corporate applications, the SaaS applications that are assigned to me by IT. So if I try to go to the Office 365 app to get access to my email, you will see that I'm granted access without being asked for additional layer of authentication. So I can get to my inbox without being prompted for additional layer of authentication. Now let's see what happens if I try to access another app which is configured for multi-factor authentication. In this case, it's Concur. Let me try to access that application, and you will see that I will get a phone call to verify the second factor of authentication. I'm not going to answer this at this time. But this is the experience of multi-factor authentication at the app level. You do have the flexibility to set multi-factor authentication at the user level, device level, or the app level, and you can choose various methods to enforce that authentication. It can be a phone call, which was the case here in this demo. It could be an SMS message that's sent to your phone, or it could be the use of an app for doing the MFA. So really powerful technology to give you that additional layer of authentication that you require for your corporate information. Now let's go back and talk a little more about secure collaboration. And Shobit will spend a little more time talking about secure collaboration.
Sure. So we talked about the identity so far, which is all about giving the right people the access to your devices and to the data. But going beyond identity is the collaboration, because your users collaborate on multiple devices, on different Office applications, or beyond Office in this case. And you want to make sure that they have that rich, productive experience across them. But one of the challenges with productivity and security is this balance that you have to maintain between the two. You're always trying to negotiate and always trying to make sure that there's a right, perfect balance between the two. And with Office 365 and EMS, we are trying to bridge that gap by bringing tools together such as Microsoft Intune, rights management services, data loss prevention capabilities that help us make that transition. So on the screen here, you'll notice some of the stats here that talk about how we are trying to fix this. So we notice that 58% of the workers have accidentally sent information to the wrong person. This happens all the time, and there must be tools available to make sure that the users can be educated that they are doing something wrong. Because a lot of times it's not the malicious users who are trying to make something wrong, which is obviously their intent, but it's always something about the good users accidentally doing the wrong thing. And this is where Microsoft solutions can help you make that right informed choices. 90% of the leakages can be tracked back to the user behavior. Once again, really important for the users to be part of the picture as well. And finally, with the advent of devices and users bringing their own devices, there's always a concept of working on your personal data at work and mixing the two information together, whether it's bringing your own device and working on your personal apps and using corporate resources for managing those applications. So let's look at the next slide, where we talk about Microsoft Intune and how that really helps bring in or segregate the data between the personal data and the corporate data. With Microsoft Intune, we are able to segregate this personal and corporate data. So here on your slide, you're looking at the mobile application management capability that Microsoft Intune provides. Now, by default, we are obviously trying to secure the devices. So every time the devices are enrolled into Microsoft Intune, we can define policies on the device itself, such as the device must not be jailbroken, the content should be encrypted on the device, there must be a password that must be required, and so on. But going beyond that, is mobile application management capabilities, which really helps you identify the corporate apps and segregates them from the personal apps that the employees might be using. So on the screen here, you might notice a couple of apps which are managed apps. Now these are apps that a company uses, so things like Outlook, Excel, Word, OneDrive. And on the other hand, there are some personal apps such as Paint, Netflix, Kindle. But using the mobile application management capability, I'm able to understand that these are two different kind of apps and limit the interaction that happens between the two apps. So for example, if I'm trying to copy some information from my managed app into my unmanaged app, that will not be allowed through Microsoft Intune because we'll recognize that this is a company corporate asset. And the same is true vice versa as well. Going beyond that is driven through the identity network. Now we understand that the users might sign into your corporate apps using their personal account and the work account. So there's always this concept of dual identity. But again, with mobile application management, we are able to limit what users can do with their identity and what data can be saved on their local devices or on the local account. Now Pragya is going to do a quick demo to help you understand how this works.
Sure. Let's take a look at this iPad, which is already enrolled with Microsoft Intune. And let's say I'm a user logged into my work email, and I have this confidential document which a sender sent to me. And I try to open this document and copy all the content of this document. And I try to paste it into the Notes app. You will see that the paste option is not enabled here because I'm trying to copy information from my work email, which is a managed app, into the Notes app, which is an unmanaged app. So IT has a policy in place that does not allow copy-paste of data from a managed app to a personal app. Now let's go back and try to copy the same data to, let's say I create a new email, and this is my work email, and I try to paste the content here. You will see that the paste option is enabled. This is because I'm allowed to copy paste information from a managed app to another managed app. Now let's see what happens if I try to open my personal email. So you will see that I have both my email accounts added here. One of them is personal and the other is my work email. And I try to open my personal email, create a new mail, and try to paste the information that I copied from the confidential document. You will see that I'm not able to do that. This is because this is my personal email. So within Outlook, you have dual identity. One of them is corporate, the other is personal, and we have the capability to restrict copy-paste of data from the corporate email to work email. Now let's go back to my work email and try to save this file to my personal Dropbox account. So here you can see that I'm linked to my personal Dropbox account, and I try to save this information here. And I get this message that says that your administrator doesn't allow saving to personal locations. So it's not only about blocking copy-paste of data from corporate to personal applications, but it's also about educating the users that they are doing something that's not expected.
Thank you, Pragya. So what Pragya showed you right now is a really strong capability which allows you to segregate the personal data from the corporate data and make sure that you're not able to interact with this kind of data in your workplace, whether it's moving the data from corporate network to your personal space or vice versa. But this is between the applications. What about the applications itself? Well, that's where DLP in Office 365 comes in, because it really goes beyond this and to identify the sensitive content that's residing inside your files and provides you information that certain information is sensitive. So on the slide here, you looking at some of the screenshots which are helping you understand that there are DLP policies today in email, in SharePoint, and in Word applications as well, like Office 2016 applications. And DLP in Office 365 really helps you identify the sensitive content, which could really be a generic sensitive content, let's say a credit card number or a PCI number. Or it could be something which can be an organization-specific number. So let's say it's your bank patent, or it could be your company's employee ID number, and so on. And it allows you to monitor the sensitive data as it's been shared, and allows you to take some actions as it's been shared or collaborated upon. So you can try to encrypt that information, you can try to combine that with exchange transport rules, or you can also go beyond that and generate incident reports and be aware as this data is traveling in your company. But the key factor as part of Office 365 DLP is the end user education, because we're really trying to make sure that your users are part of the solution. Because a lot of times you have to just inform them to make that right informed decision, and with DLP in Office 365 we are trying to do that. Now, we started this journey way back with email, where we had DLP capabilities natively integrated within email, but we have taken that beyond email to collaboration in SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business. And with the launch of Office 2016, these capabilities now come as part of your Office 2016 applications. So moving on the slide here, the next step is to show you the actions that you can do as part of DLP policies. Now, obviously, there are a lot of different policies, actions that are available to you out of the box, such as combining them with exchange transport rules or applying encryption to them. But one of the most common encryption solutions that we offer is rights management solution. And rights management solution has been out there for a while now. It works great with emails, document libraries. It works great with the files itself. And it really is a policy-driven encryption mechanism where we can assign a particular policy to a document, and that policy travels along with the document. So even if you have an Office document that you have applied RMS template to, that policy is going to travel with that Office document, whether it's placed on any external source or any other data warehouse. So, and with this access control also comes the capability to track the access controls options that are provided to the document. So I can see which user has clicked on this particular document, was their access granted, was their access revoked, and so on. It works great internally inside the organization, and it also works great externally when I'm trying to collaborate with my partners or with people outside my organization. And as we are launching Office across multiple platforms, so is RMS expanding to other platforms. So if you have an RMS file that's been sent on iOS device or an Android device, it would work great just like it would work for Windows. So with this, let's move on to some demos. I would like to show you some of this in action. So on my screen here, I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to move into my email here. And I'm going to start with DLP in email, because that's the first step that we did as part of our DLP initiative. So what you'll notice here is I have a particular set of files here that I'm trying to send to someone external to my company. And straight away, you'll see a policy tip that has come up on the screen. Now I can try and go and show details, and that will tell me that, hey, this information or this message contains sensitive information. And if I try and click on learn more, it actually tells me that this information contains, or this email contains credit card number. At this point, I can report this to my user saying that, yeah, this may not be correct, this might be a false positive, or I can actually see that this indeed is a credit card number file, because I can see that has already been flagged as part of my Outlook email as well. Now this is applicable today as part of your Outlook or Outlook on the web, or if you're using Outlook 2013 or Outlook 2016. But going beyond that, we have this capability now available as part of SharePoint. Let me show you how this looks on the admin side. So here I have a couple of policies that I've set up for my organization. So this is all part of our compliance center, which we'll touch upon later in the slide. But if I try and see a policy here that I've set up for my company, there are a couple of rules that I've defined here as part of DLP in SharePoint. Now, obviously, I'm defining this across SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business. And going forward, you can see multiple workloads will show up here, whether it's Exchange Online or any other workload that we might expand into. But looking at the rules itself, I have a couple of rules options that I've created here. The first option is for the low count. The second option is for high count. Let me open up the one which is high count. And what you will notice here is I've defined this policy for credit card number. So it's scanning for credit card numbers from 1 to any. And based on the credit card information, it's going to block access to the content because there are a lot of credit card numbers that have been exchanged as part of this Word document or a different Office document. At the same time, I can generate a policy tip and I can customize this policy tip to provide my own set of notification text. And going beyond that, I can also empower the user to override this policy and provide a valid business justification so that they can continue to work on this content. I can also generate incident reports for my administrators so that they are aware that a certain violation happened and they can take more actions from this point onwards. So let's see what happens when I'm trying to log in as a user. So once again, I'm just going to zoom in on my slide here so people can see it. I have a OneDrive file library here where there are a bunch of different files, and some of them are actually sensitive. And all of them are flagged with a unique visual cue. So for example, if I hover over this particular item, it's telling me that the access to this item is blocked because it conflicts with your organization policy. If I click on it, it actually tells me the policy tip itself. It provides me the details that, hey, we found credit card numbers inside this document. Now at this point, I can go ahead and resolve this because we want to make sure that the users are part of the solution. We are giving them an opportunity to override this and provide a business justification so that they can continue to work on this document. Now, this justification can later be reviewed by the admins, and they can make sure that, yes, this indeed was a right corrective course of action. The key message here being the users are part of our offering. They are part of the solution, but we are not trying to block them. We are trying to make sure that they're productive, but at the same time, their experiences are secure. Now let's move on to the RMS experience. So for this, I'm going to pick up my iPad here. And what you will notice is on the screen, I've opened up a particular attachment which came in as an RMS protected document. And when I open that attachment, and this is an iPad, so you can see that the permissions are already defined on this document. So clearly I can edit this document, but I cannot copy or cannot print this document, and any of those actions cannot be done as part of this particular workflow. Now, I mentioned one of the new capabilities that we are launching as part of RMS, which is document sharing. If I go back and go into my browser, I actually have that doc tracking capability opened up. And here I can see the different views that the people have looked at in this particular document. So if I've gone ahead and shared this document with someone else, I can see exactly when and who were these people who looked at this document. There's also a timeline view of when they viewed it. And there's also a map view, which tells me the geographic location from where they've logged in. And this is telling me some interesting insights because it looks like I had shared the document with a bunch of people in North America, but it looks like there were a couple of people who logged in from Australia. Now, this is obviously not correct because I've not given people in Australia this permission. So at this point, I can go ahead and revoke access to those people who have logged in from Australia. And this, by just one single click, that permission will be adjusted and those permissions will be reflected in my document itself. So that was all about secure collaboration. But moving on onto our slide here, we have the third pillar of investment, which is all about stopping the external threats. Now, we can do all that we want as part of empowering our own users, but the external attackers are getting smarter and they're finding new ways to get inside your organization. And here are a couple of stats which are really staggering. On average, for example, the attacker stays inside your company for 200 days. And that's a lot of days for them to stay in and do a lot of damage. And the average cost for a breach, for example, is 3.5 million. Now, obviously, these are breaches that are known. There are a lot of attacks that are unknown and are not reported. And this is actually a growing trend in the industry. So what is Microsoft doing in terms of helping you solve these external threats? So Microsoft is actually helping you solve this in 3 different ways. Now, at the first site, we are trying to make sure that we are blocking these external threats at all. And we want to make sure that at the perimeter itself, the attackers cannot get in. This is based on the identity, based on the devices that they are trying to get into, and making sure that the malicious code is not running in our own environment. And the next step is really to make sure that once we have detected these attacks, can we block it? And also, can we go back and remediate those attacks so that there is no way for the attackers to make any inroads into our system? Now, looking into in a deeper manner on the slide here, you will notice that we are providing an end-to-end defense and an in-depth approach to preventing these external threats. Now, it all starts with preventing the attacks. So it starts from making sure that they're not able to come into your network via email or any other communication channel. And this is where Exchange Online Protection or Advanced Threat Protection capability comes in, because they all provide a built-in spam engine, a built-in antivirus engine that blocks malicious codes from running in and blocks them in real time so that your users are always safe. Now, beyond that, let's say by some means, if the attacker is inside your devices, let's say there's a USB stick that you're trying to run into your own devices. With Windows 10, we have a brand new set of features that you're trying to introduce to the market, which help go beyond the traditional device security capability. So we obviously have Smart Screen, which can block malicious links. But going beyond that, we have things like Device Guard, which does not allow any of the malicious codes to run even as an administrator, even if it has administrator privileges. But this is all great for preventing the attacks. Going beyond this is the detection and response to these potential attacks. And Pragya is going to help us talk through that.
So Shobit talked about some of the ways to prevent attacks when they are about to happen through common channels such as email or browser. What about the attacks that are already in progress? So we saw that an attacker spends more than 200 days in the network, in your environment, trying to gather all that information that they need to cause damage. So what about those attacks that are in progress? How do you detect potential attacks? So we have Azure AD security reports that use machine learning and the billions of authentications that happen through Azure Active Directory to generate real-time security reports that tell you about malicious activities and abnormal behaviors with your cloud identities. We will see the demos and we will see a few security reports that we have as part of Azure Active Directory. And we have Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics that helps you protect your on-premise identities. So it uses behavioral analysis to detect potential attacks. It is extremely simple to set up. It doesn't need policies to enable the detection of these attacks. It is intuitive. It gives you a social-like timeline view of all the anomalous activities that are happening in your environment. So let's take a look at some of these Azure AD security reports and how the ATA timeline looks like. So let's start with Azure Active Directory security reports. This is my Azure AD portal. I go to Active Directory and I select my domain. And I go to reports, and you will see that I have various reports for anomalous activities. I have reports for activity logs, integrated applications, rights management. So let's look a little deeper into one of these reports. Let's say I try to access the reports for sign-ins from multiple geographies. You will see that user Jennifer has tried to access an application from New York at a certain time, and then within a few seconds later, she tried to access something from Bangkok. So this is something that is anomalous because it's not possible to travel from one location to the other in the time that's shown here. So this is something that flags IT, that something abnormal is happening in the environment. So in case that IT sees such an event, they have the option to either set multi-factor authentication for this user. They also have the ability to reset password for this user or block this user from accessing any corporate applications completely. We also have reports such as sign-ins from possibly infected devices. So this gives the list of all the users who try to access corporate resources from infected devices. And if this is not allowed by IT, it can flag IT admin and they can take appropriate action to stop such an activity. So really powerful tools for IT to not only learn about anomalous behaviors, but also take action if they see something unexpected happening in the environment. So this is about protecting cloud identities. Let's see how we can protect on-premise identities in an organization. So this is Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics, which is included as a part of EMS. And this gives you information about potential threats or attacks that are happening in your on-prem environment. So you can see that you get a timeline kind of view, which is intuitive and social-like feed that tells you about all the anomalous activities that are happening in your environment. And these are categorized as high priority, medium priority, or low. So let's look at some activities that happen that raise a flag that something unexpected is happening. So let's take a look at what happened at 11:52. You will see that there was a brute force attack using LDAP on this account of Michael Dubinsky. There were 450 password guess attempts made for this account, and one account password was successfully guessed. And you will see that 2 minutes later, there was a suspicion of identity theft based on abnormal behavior for the same account. You will see that Michael Dubinsky exhibited abnormal behavior when performing certain activities. So it learns over the period of time, and it does a behavior analysis to detect, learn, and analyze potential attacks that are going to happen. So after 11:54, you will see that immediately after that, there was an identity theft that happened using pass the ticket attack. And administrators' tickets were stolen from this machine. So this is a really powerful tool that gives you insights into what anomalous behaviors are happening in your environment, and you can prevent attacks from happening by looking at this view. So you get flagged about anomalous activities, and you also get recommendations on the next steps that you can take to avoid this attack from actually happening. So we are not just preventing attacks, we are also looking at potential attacks that can happen in future, and you have the tools to stop those attacks from happening.
So looking at the other example here, which is all about advanced threat protection. Now, Pragya talked about how we are making sure that we are helping you identify the threats and also react to it. So for example, with ATA, you can find out which account is getting compromised. With time travel feature as part of AD reporting, you can find out if somebody is logging from multiple geographies and take corrective actions. But you also want to make sure that you're protected at the perimeter. And the most common way the attackers try to get into your system is via emails. And it continues to be one of the most predominant ways by which we see more attacks happen in the industry. But one of the features that we have launched as part of our new offering in E5 is advanced threat protection for Exchange Online. Let me show you how that looks on my screen. So I've logged into my Exchange Admin Center, and what you'll notice here is there are a couple of options here for safe attachments and for safe links. If I try and open the safe attachment feature, this is where you can define the policy in case you see a particular malware which does not have a known signature. Now obviously you have Exchange Online protection that will block you from known signatures, antivirus solutions that already have can identify signatures for a particular attachment type, especially if that attachment or a malware has been out there for a long period. But what about a brand new zero-day virus? Well, that's where ATP comes in, and it can identify that particular attachment type and block it. At the same time, you can also redirect the message back to your administrator, or if you have a incident management team, they can go back and track this for their reference. You can apply this back to your user, back to your domain or groups as is appropriate for your company. And just like safe attachment, there's another option for safe links, which is the other feature that's part of ATP service. If I try and open this particular link, it'll help you define the policy for the time of click protection. Now with EOP today, we give you a time of delivery protection. which is making sure that if there's a message that comes in and it has some malicious links, we'll block it. But with the safe links feature, we are taking that beyond it. We are trying to add a time of click protection, wherein the users are always protected when they're trying to click on links that are part of their email messages. So I've turned it on by default, and at the same time, as an admin, I can also track those clicks so that I can find out exactly who in my company is getting targeted. We have always had message trace, which gives us details about the incoming messages, but with the click trace, we are expanding that beyond it to give us unique details about each individual click in the company. I can also add some safe lists. So for example, if I know that I'm accessing certain websites which are safe and my users can get through it and I don't want them to be rewritten as part of safe links proxy, I can do that as part of this policy as well. From a user perspective, if I go back into my inbox, I have a couple of emails here, so let me open up this one. And this is a very classic example of how an attacker might also try and get in. So here's an email which is saying that, there's a new Office 365 E5 SKU that's coming up for launch very soon. And there's a couple of links here. And if I try and click on this link, what you'll notice is this link indeed was malicious. The attacker did behind the scene change the destination of the link, and as a user, I'm notified of this particular malicious attempt. And at this point, I can continue to the website, although it's not recommended. And as an administrator, I can also block that action if needed. There are some other links in that message, though, which are pointing to some other URL. But if I look at them, they're all rewritten and there are safe URLs, so I can get to them without any harm, and I can access those links as appropriate. So that was all about stopping the external threats, but that was the third pillar that we talked about. So far we have looked at the making sure that the identity is in place so that we can give the right access. We have looked at the collaboration perspective to make sure that users can collaborate, and we have stopped the external threats from even happening. But one of the key things that keep evolving over time are the regulations, and this is pretty predominant because every year we hear that this is a year of compliance. And there are new laws that are coming up every single day in different geographies, and we have to evolve our solutions based on those needs as well. Here are some stats which are telling you how this industry regulation is evolving over time. So 90% of US corporations are currently engaged in litigation. Now that's a huge number, and this number is a growing number, and this is something that we are observing from our end as well. 147, the average number of active lawsuits for companies which are larger than 1 billion. So this is a growing number, like I mentioned, and one of the key factors that we provide our users with, our key capability, is not just protection from attackers. It's not just protection from known threats. It's also protection from the potential lawsuits that you might get into in the future, because we have a lot of data that we secure as part of Office 365. There are 200 billion plus email messages that we are scanning each month as part of Exchange Online and Outlook.com. And with this comes a lot of data sets, and with this is also a lot of opportunity for you to monitor this data and make sure that it's compliant. So the compliance here is in two pieces. So if I move on to my next slide here, what you will notice is there are two sort of key compliance investment areas, and they are all in different pillars itself. One of them is obviously as part of our service itself. Now, obviously, we are a cloud service. We are going in different geographies, and it's offered in different geographies. But we want to make sure that we are compliant with the local or industry regulation. So obviously, there are more than 900 controls, and this is a growing list. It's close to 1,000 now, where these control sets are available as part of Office 365, where you can see on Office Trust Center as part of trust.office365.com. And it will tell you the details about the different regulations and industries that we are compliant with. And we are continuously evolving in this space to make sure that we are ready and we are available for our customers in different locale. But going beyond that are the controls that we provide to our users. And this is where the other set of compliance investment areas come in. Now, on a hindsight, there are 4 key pillars that we're investing in. The first one is archiving, which is all about once you have more information than you would like, you would want to archive the previous information. Now, our key strategy here is that it's in place, making sure that you don't need to duplicate the data. It's unified, so it means it's across SharePoint, Exchange Online, and Skype for Business. It's one single place, and you can extend it from other third parties as well. The second one is auditing. And one of the key pillars as part of auditing is the fact that it's centralized. And one of the key things that we announced as part of our recent RSA conference was the fact that we have a new activity feed API, which is sort of giving information from Office 365 as part of an API to other third-party systems or to our customers directly. So they can build reports on top of it or develop incident management applications as appropriate. The third one is e-discovery, which is in place, and it allows you to search for content stored across different workloads. You can search for it based on regex, you can search it based on your queries, and you can also put accounts on hold. So if you discover somebody who is compromised and you want to put his data on hold so that he cannot collaborate on it even further, you can do that. But one other key thing that we're launching as part of E5 is EquiView Analytics, which we're also referring to as advanced e-discovery. What advanced e-discovery allows you to do is minimize the time it takes you to work with your lawyers. So when you go to a lawyer, typically they have to scan thousands of emails, thousands of documents, and that's a lot of cost. But with advanced e-discovery, we can really bring down that number. There are techniques like email threading, which helps you trim down the number of emails that have to be read. And there are other techniques like predictive coding, which helps minimize that number of data that has been scanned or data that has been analyzed by your analyst or by your lawsuit paralegal people. And this is where advanced e-discovery comes in, and it can really help you save that cost. Now, all of these compliance investment areas are managed through Compliance Center. Let me show you that in example here. So on my screen here, I'm going to go ahead and move to Compliance Center, which is the one-place stop for everything compliance. And this is where you'll find a bunch of different things such as archiving. So I mentioned that I can archive different mailboxes here. And this is a simple click. So I can see certain mailboxes are disabled, some of them are enabled. If I click on this button, I can go ahead and enable this particular archive as well. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so that it's clear. This device management, which is part of Office 365 Compliance Center. Now, obviously, there's Microsoft Intune, but for those organizations that require a simple version of mobile device management, smaller organizations, or those organizations that do not want mobile application management, they have built an MDM with Office 365 itself. So you can enroll the device and define some policies for their organization. So just like Intune, you can have policies here which require you to have a password strength, make sure the device is not jailbroken, and require data encryption on the devices as appropriate. Similarly, there's DLP, which I just showed to you guys earlier, which is all about setting up policies for sensitive content as it's been traveling across different workloads and has been shared and collaborated upon. There's e-discovery, where I can find and define cases. In this case, I have defined a couple of cases which identify sensitive content again, and there are queries placed here. So if, for example, if I open this query, it will show you that this query is detecting credit card number or social security number, and it's providing results from Exchange, SharePoint, and Skype for Business. And this can be expanded to other areas as well. There are reports and retention capabilities. So if you have retention tags or you want to put accounts on hold, you can do that from the Compliance Center as well. And we are adding more capabilities such as search. This is a new capability that we have added as part of our Compliance Center, where you can search for different content and apply certain actions straight away versus going through two different places within the Compliance Center. So what I've showed you here is a set of investment areas from Office 365, where we have different investment areas from archiving to auditing to e-discovery to advanced e-discovery as part of EquiView Analytics. And this really is the fourth pillar in our investment. So what have we looked at today? We have looked at multiple things. We have looked at simplifying and protecting access as part of AAD and making sure using conditional access that the right devices and users can connect to the corporate resources. We want to make sure that as part of Windows, there are different controls available such as Windows Passport. We didn't show that to you guys, but that's a really cool control wherein you can use biometrics and make sure that you can log into your system. The second pillar that we showed to you guys was allowing collaboration and making sure that we are preventing data loss. And this happened at 3 stages, making sure that we can segregate the data at the app and device level, making sure that company data is different from the corporate data or the personal data. The second thing we showed you was all about DLP in Office 365, which helps you detect, monitor, and protect the sensitive information. And finally, we showed you RMS, which was all about securing and sharing that information externally or inside your company. We talked about stopping external threats, how we can stop it from happening using email filtering solutions such as Exchange Online Protection or Advanced Threat Protection, or going beyond that into the devices itself with Device Guard or Smart Screen, or taking actions with Azure AD and Advanced Threat Analytics, where you can go back and discover users who are compromised and take corrective actions as needed. And finally, we talked about staying compliant, where we talked about different compliance investments we are making within Office 365, both in the service itself, making sure that we are compliant with the latest regulation and standards, and also giving you a vehicle and a tool to make sure that you can use this tool set in your network. So that's all we had today for this session, where we talked about different investment areas across Microsoft, from different product groups from Office, EMS, and Windows and Azure. And hope you like the session, and stay tuned for more.